You are listening to Ace Comicals. I'm Greg, and today I'm joined by my co-host Leon. Let's go! Welcome everyone to episode number 59 of Ace Comicals, and I stood on the roof of the Ace Comicals HQ and I threw up the Ace Comicals symbol, and on leather wings Leon descended. And yes, I think today the big thing for us is the fact that there has been 80 years of Batman. So we've been celebrating Batman's 80th anniversary, and we've got Detective Comics 1000 to talk about. But before that, Leon, what have you been up to?
Well, it's been a while.
Yeah, because you were missing last time. Were you?
The time before, I think.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
What is time?
No, there was three of us last time. What am I doing?
The time there. Before I was gone.
Yeah, I was there.
Since the last episode, I have been gathering some comics that I either not got around to reading yet, but today's unread comics or tomorrow's comics to read.
Exactly.
But other than that, I recently went to the cinema. Me and our dearly departed Rahul and past guest of the show, Marvin, went to see Jordan Peele's follow-up to Get Out, the horror movie titled Us. And it was really good. It's one of those movies where, especially if you're a big fan of Get Out like I was, where you don't want to go in immediately comparing it to the film before. So I put all of that out of my head. I only watched the first trailer, which is really, really good. It features a cool, horror-y, string-style orchestral version of Luna's I've Got Five on it.
Nice.
And, it dropped on Christmas Day, and I was like, I knew this movie was coming, and I'm ready for it. And, watching the movie, it was interesting, because it's a movie that gets itself under your skin, and when watching it, I had a good time watching it. There's a lot of little mix of Easter eggs and deeper thematic elements that were nice to pick up during the movie.
So, talk me through what is the hook with this? Because I don't think I've even seen a trailer for this.
Well, what it is I'll mention what's on the posters in the trailers. So a family go to Santa Cruz to their holiday home, and they're there to sort of hang out and meet up with their the dad's friends who are there. And it's all meant to be this nice sort of summer getaway. And then the first night, when everyone's about to go to bed, they notice there's another family standing in the driveway. There's four members, a mum, dad, a son, and a daughter. And they notice that there's people in the driveway wearing these red suits. And then they basically get into the house, these people, and then they realize that they're doppelgangers. They look just like them. They are us, which is a line said in the trailer. And basically from that point on, it spirals out and out of control. And like an onion, which is the worst metaphor, but you're peeling back layers constantly until you get sort of to the root of what the horror is. And it's really effective, and I'd highly recommend going to watch it. And I would probably say don't even watch the trailers. Watch the first trailer when you've seen the movie, but just go in blind. I mean, Jordan Peele knocked it out of the park with Get Out. I would say just dive in, because it's a lot of his influences are up on the screen in this one. And while because it has a wider, broader scope, it's not as neat as, say, Get Out is in terms of its its themes and meaning and stuff. But I think because of that, it gets to tap into something larger and more general in some ways. So I'd highly recommend it. I think the cast are just perfect. The score's amazing. The writing and directing are just top notch. And it's a movie that once you've seen it, it like I was saying, it burrows into you the days after. And I haven't stopped thinking about it since seeing it. But also, it's a really good discussion movie because of this. Because there are so many different elements that are up for debate and for like digging in and having meaty discussions about what it meant to you and what you think it means and how it resonates in different ways. So I really enjoyed that. And on top of it, it's just a well-made, well-crafted horror movie. And I think we've been getting pretty lucky with those over the last couple of years. There's been a lot of really good, smart horror films coming out, and they've been getting the attention they deserve. But definitely check out Us People.
We've sort of had that discussion before when we've talked about like how good horror movies have been recently, and it seems to be directly proportionate with how shit the world's been.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like we've seen in the comic space as well. With like things like Ice Cream Man. Was it Winnebago Graveyard?
Yeah.
And various other titles that we've covered over the last 2 years and a bit. I think the thing that's great about horror, and we've said this a million times, everybody said it, is that it's such a good way to talk about the general fears of a society, and the many different layers to them, and you can have the different horrors. You can make them supernatural or larger than life to tell this greater story that is pretty much a story about the human condition. So sci-fi is really good for that as well. But it's nice. As bad as things are, at least at least one of the positives that we can pull from this is that a lot of people are finding different ways to express themselves and sort of put their thoughts and feelings out there in really artful and quite visually arresting ways.
Yes, definitely. What we need now is we need a sci-fi horror where someone leads a group of people away from a larger group of people that are prospering and doing really well, only to have them die of starvation in the desert and turn on each other and start eating each other or something like that.
I've no idea what the subtext of that story would be, but and any writers, please take it up and give it to us.
And they get like halfway out the door and they spend the first hour of the film deciding how they're going to leave and what they're going to take with them. But they don't.
But when do the tentacle monsters show up? That's the important question.
Not until they've made it into the desert and they have to make a pact with the tentacle monsters in order to survive. But then they eat each other and that's how it ends. So that's the next one that we need. Maybe I should be the one to write it.
Yeah, well, definitely get on it. But I have a feeling that there are hundreds of these stories coming out. Like, I think next year is just going to be a bounty of stories of this type, no matter what happens.
Yeah. Definitely. Oh, dear. But, so, well, mine would be called March 29th, but, you know.
That's such a curious date. I like it.
Yeah. Anyway, on to more positive things. Batman is 80 years old. Would you believe it?
He looks pretty good for his age.
He does, yeah. Bruce Wayne. He looks really good for that. And so did Alfred. Looks even better.
See,
like, considering how old Alfred must be, yeah.
Billionaires, like they can afford to look young forever.
Yeah. I know, it's great. And I'm sure some of that he must be giving Alfred some of those pills as well, because obviously, like, Alfred must be how old now? Oh, speaking of Alfred, he's getting his own movie, isn't he?
Isn't it a TV show?
Is it a TV show? I thought it was going to be a movie.
I think it's called Pennyworth.
Oh, is it going to be a TV show?
Yeah, I think it's going to be on DC Universal, the CW, one of the two.
I missed that. I saw a teaser for it, and for some reason it registered in my mind that it was going to be a movie. But if it's going to be a TV show, then cool. But yeah, Alfred.
Into the inner workings of Alfred.
Well, I mean, they kind of did that a little bit with All-Star Batman. We got some kind of like Alfred prequel stuff in that, which was really cool. Like, because he's kind of like, I mean, he's getting brought to the front a bit more now, but he's kind of like the unsung hero of Batman stories, because you don't, like, he's just there in the background doing what needs to be done.
Well, that's the thing.
Always vigilant, always.
Yeah, he's like a sidekick who doesn't have to put on a costume.
Yeah. He doesn't have to put on green tights or anything, you know. He doesn't have to swing from building to building with a little yellow cape on. Like,
but he does have to look after an insane guy. An insane rich guy, but...
Yeah, but...
There you go.
And for some reason, he's still there after all these years. Like, if you were Alfred, you'd have packed your bags by now.
Hey, they're family. You can't choose your family.
I know. But, like, when they almost kill themselves every night, you do have to stop and think.
Have an intervention or two.
Exactly, yeah. Like, how that guy hasn't had a stroke yet, I don't know. But, you know.
Oh, there's probably... That's been the story. He's had a heart attack, hasn't he? In something. I'm sure there's been a story of... There's various stories of...
Depths of my... Batman. I mean,
Alfred
various things have happened to Alfred. Like... But I don't know if he's had a heart attack from or a stroke from, like, sheer anxiety seeing Bruce out there doing ridiculous shit. But yeah, I mean,
I hope the TV show is not all prequel. I hope some of it is set during now. It's just we never see Batman. We just get Alfred's side of it.
A whole episode of just like the camera is basically in the screen of the Bat computer. And it's just Alfred, just sat there with a headset on, just talking.
I want to see him stitching back the suit and buffing out dings on the Batmobile. I want to see the nitty gritty.
I think that should be the intro to the show, set to classical music. Like, you know, like you get those kind of like montage scenes of butlers getting a house ready for a party.
Yeah,
it should be that, but Alfred getting the Batcave ready for Bruce. So like just like polishing the Batmobile and like welding stuff back together and making batarangs and
that's the thing, like
placing them neatly with his white gloves on, you know, on a
He's
tray.
got to be in great condition, hasn't he? Because that stuff isn't easy. Like Tony Stark has got like robots who do everything for him. Yeah. But like Batman and Alfred, for the most part, it's them moving stuff about and
they do everything
building
themselves.
Stuff. Yeah, hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's been various other members of the Bat family over the years that have helped Batman, that have built things for him or, you know, done mechanical work and things like that. But like for the most part, yeah, you're right. Throughout history, the most part it has just been Alfred and Batman, Alfred and Bruce. So yeah.
So how did Batman get to 80? Like,
well,
why do you think? But why do you think that why is he not a forgotten Golden Age or Silver Age hero? Why has he been resonant for 80 years?
I think it's just the idea of, you know, an ordinary man standing amongst this pantheon of basically their gods and still managing to hold his own. And also, like, the Batman stories, and, you know, they're just great detective stories. Like, when you strip it all back, he is just a master detective. And there's something about a good mystery that keeps people interested and draws people in. And some of the greatest Batman stories are really good old-fashioned mysteries.
Mm.
You know,
I think
flair, but yeah,
I think there's a lot of weight to that. I think that his lack of like supernatural power does lead him to be a more. I mean, he's a billionaire, but there's that. There's that promise.
His bank account is supernatural.
Yeah.
But,
well, yeah. There's there's that promise that you have in your mind where you're reading books, or you're watching some of the other Batman movies, and you're just thinking like, oh yeah, if I had hundreds of billions, like if I had Jeff Bezos money, like you could do it. I could build like a thing underground. I could build. I could get all these machines built and stuff, and I could go out and clean up the streets. Like, as ridiculous as it sounds, like that notion does seem like a vaguely possible one if you had the means.
Yeah, you could hire the trainer. You could you could travel the world and pick up the skills. You could find the best of the best at everything and learn with them, and like apprentice under like master spies and things like that to learn. And it's
that's
just,
the thing.
Yeah, but I think the thing about it as well is his sheer will and determination. Like, you watch this man. He is he's an ordinary man, but you watch him achieve feats of superhuman. Like constantly punching above his weight, even when he's only only doing his, like I say ordinary, but I mean like, like there's just like bread and butter Batman stuff.
Yeah.
Like going 4 nights without sleep.
Yeah.
To track
Yeah.
somebody down and things like that. And it's just incredible, like will and determination that this guy has. Something else.
Like, I think like, in addition to that, it's the thing that he is a symbol, isn't he? I mean, the bat symbol is not just resonant because it looks cool, but also like it has so many connotations. It brings so many things around. Like Batman is a thing where like anyone can like if him flying the flag type thing, him holding the torch and running in sort of gives everyone else the push they need to not have to sit down and take the crap that their respective Gotham is given them.
Yeah, he's a symbol. He will. It instills that like, because if he can do it, anybody can. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like,
and that's the thing. I think like what is evident about him is that with a few tweaks here and there, he is so relevant decade to decade, and there's something in that all these combinations of writers and artists have come together and have written and drawn some of the best like comic book stories, full stop, using this character as the vector, as the jumping off point. I think there's something to that where a lot of people do some of their best work writing and drawing for this character.
Yeah, but I mean, like, not only that, he's got like the greatest collection of rogues, I think. Yeah, in comics.
I think that is one of the strongest points. If you think of who are the two biggest superheroes, it is Batman and Spider-Man from Marvel, and they're two heroes who have just the best rogues galleries. But I think Batman stands up there as the best.
Well, yeah, because Batman's rogues aren't just villains or foils; they are tragic and human, and they have so many different like faces and facets.
Yeah,
I mean, one of them has 2 faces, but yeah, it's just there's so many different facets to each one of Batman's rogues, and they're just such interesting characters, and the kind of hope and the kind of like feelings that Batman instills are true and real. So, like the kind of the feeling that you get where the rallying cry to stand up for yourself that Batman comics would give you when you read Batman comics. like the rallying cry to stand up for what you think is right, the rallying cry to stand up for yourself. It's a different kind of rallying cry. It's a real feeling rallying cry. It's not like something under the guise of patriotism, which is what you would get from other comics. It's not something, it's not too polished. It's gritty, it's filthy, and, it's like kicking and thrashing out of the alley as a 10-year-old kid being dragged away by police from your mother's bleeding out body. That's what it is. It's just, yeah. But
that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think like there's just so many different iconographies and elements to the character and his world and Gotham itself that you can see how he's remained relevant and resonant for 8 decades,
and he's
likely for 100 more to come.
Yeah. Definitely.
End of time.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. In 20 years, Leon, in our lifetime, we're going to get to see 100 years of Batman. I mean, I said this about Marvel as well, but Batman's as old as Marvel.
And do you think Bob Kane and Bill Finger had any idea?
I don't, I really don't. Like when I went back and I read the first ever Batman story, I went back and dug up the first ever Batman story and read it recently. From Detective Comics number 27, Batman's first ever kind of appearance and outing. And when you read that, and then you think like how far everything has come since then, like how much more fleshed out characters are, like, beginnings like that as a single story in what was then like an anthology of various detective tales. To grow into something like this kind of like force, this pop culture icon that, I mean, like when you think of DC Comics, the first 2 things you think of are Batman and Superman. And when you think of comics in general, the first 3 things you think of are Batman, Spider-Man and Superman. Like if you ask anybody in the street, like name 3 comic book characters.
In most countries on the planet as well.
Yeah, exactly. And, he's like something that in, I don't know, another, maybe it'll still be in another 150 years, maybe they will still be making Batman stories.
Thing is, what is it about Batman where he's the most popular superhero, where his movies consistently make like near $1 billion and some of them past $1 billion at the box office, where his comics sell out on the stands constantly 80 years after, where he's the most popular character for his roster at all, how he's just ubiquitous with pop culture at this level, that still everybody who likes Batman feels cool for liking Batman. It's not like, mainstream Batman, blah, blah, blah. I like characters no one said that. Everyone likes Batman. And how is that the case where everyone feels like the cool, well, I like Batman, even though everybody likes Batman? What is it about him? How we all have that feeling, even though
I don't know.
So mainstream as hell. I don't understand it.
I can't explain it. I can't. I think it's because when you like Batman, you like Batman. And there's like a level. Like, I mean, there's experiencing Batman as pop culture, as ambient Batman. And then there's deep dive Batman. And I think you feel cool for liking Batman because it's just, I don't know, it's just something that is perennially cool anyway.
And there is something for everyone, because if you're just the case of like, oh, I just want a hero who's badass and beats the crap out of people. You've got your more sort of gritty, Zack Snyder-y edge, I was going to say Frank Miller, but even Frank Miller's one's a bit more dimensional than that. Yeah. But yeah, you've got your like fascist Batman if you want him, who beats the crap out of people and is like a tank. Yeah. And throws criminals off buildings and
He's
stuff
just
like that.
A leather-clad steamroller.
Yeah, but then you've also got your detective, witty Batman.
Yeah,
you've got your you've got your jokey camp Batman. Yeah,
Batman. Yeah,
but even the worst, quote unquote, worst versions still have something there. There's still like a spark there that is enjoyable, even if it's enjoyable in a ha bat nipples way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my Batman is the witty detective Batman. Like, that is the Batman I like the most. I love those kind of like where you can see the cogs turning in his head when he's sitting there in the Batcave with Alfred, like, just constantly sniping at him. Like, are you going to sleep this decade, kind of thing. And he's just like sitting there staring at the computer, just like, I can't work out why that's a slightly different shape to that or something like that. And he's just, he's looking at something incredibly minute and something that would probably send me blind if I looked at it as long as he did. And it's just, and I like the Batman where it's like sheer grit, will and determination where nothing can hold him down. So where, some of the best Batman stories are Scarecrow stories where he's fighting the influence of the fear toxin. And like,
it's like super internal.
Yeah, and you just get a pure sense of how willful this man is and how difficult this man is to keep down. And I think it's the fact there's like a fine line between Batman and Tony Stark as well. And like, if you look at those two as like two sides of the same coin, almost. I mean, like, there's like that fine line between Batman and Tony Stark, and I think Batman sits on the right side of that, because I actually find Iron Man obnoxious. I think you're supposed to, but like, Batman kind of sits on the right side of that, and I think that's what I mean. If I'm going to pick from my millionaires with toys, I'm going to pick Batman. Because, Tony Stark's obnoxious. I don't mind saying that on here. He is. And I think you're supposed to feel that when you read Iron Man comics. I think you really are. I mean, Batman can be obnoxious at times as well. Like,
well, Tony Stark is like the Bruce Wayne character all the time type thing.
Yeah. He never turns it off. But Batman is only using Bruce Wayne as a front to hide his true identity. Because Bruce Wayne isn't the secret identity. And building on that, to celebrate Batman's 80th anniversary this year, also this year there has been but we've got issue 1000 of Detective Comics, and that was last Wednesday. So that would have been Wednesday the 27th of March, and that kind of like was the true 80th anniversary of Batman was on Saturday the 30th of March. But the and this is like, this is going back, like, because Batman's first appearance was Detective Comics 27 in May 1939. So from then onwards up to 1,000 issues, Batman kind of like took over as the main character and the main story in Detective Comics became Batman, and then Batman got his own comic in 1940 as well. Like, spring 1940 is when we got Batman #1, and from then onwards it's just been just strength to strength basically. From there on, like, Batman has just grown and grown and grown, and now it's like this epic myth. And there's 1,000 issues of Detective Comics, and I'm sitting here with issue 1,000 in my hand. And yeah, it's a really, really cool celebration of Batman, and there is this massive, massive team that have worked on it. Like, to read out every name would be insanity. But like, I mean, I think it's like a who's who of DC creators has worked on this, and a lot, like a who's who of people that have written Batman before now. And there's just some really great artwork in here, some really great stories. I I'll just go through a couple of my favourites from it, actually, because I think it's a really, really good celebration of what Batman means to different people, and it shows all the different facets of who Batman is as a character, and really just, for any Batman fan, it's just a great thing to read, because it just really does, like, I mean, parts of it actually brought a tear to my eye. But my favourite story was the Paul Dini one, which was The Legend of Knute Brody. And this like from the whole anthology, this was my favourite because it had that distinct Batman animated series feel, and that's probably because Paul Dini wrote it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it actually made me chuckle out loud, and I could totally imagine it animated. And what it is, it's this it's done in the style of like a documentary expose of a like one of Gotham's most famous henchmen, but he's not famous, and he's like worked for like all the big rogues, and he's not famous because he's good. He's famous because of his screw it, like the fact like he screws up so spectacularly, and like each rogue that's featured has a kind of a story about him in how he's basically messed up and ended up getting that rogue shoved in Arkham or whatever.
So it's just been bouncing from rogue to rogue.
Yeah, and they just like they do different interviews. They do an interview with Ivy where Ivy tells her story. They do an interview with the Riddler about how like hapless this guy is, basically. And it's got a really great twist at the end of the story, and it's absolutely brilliant. And I could imagine it animated, like looking at it, and even the art had a little bit of a animated series twang about it.
That's cool.
Just yeah, I mean, it wasn't obviously, you know, it wasn't animated like series art, but it just had that kind of edge to it, like in the character designs and everything, in the way they dress. And I just I loved that one. That one was my favourite one. Yeah, that one took me back to being a 10-year-old kid. And that for me, like, because obviously this is what Batman means to different people, that for me is what Batman means to me. Because I could, you know, like sitting in front of the TV in the evenings, because I think Batman used to be on in the evenings on Cartoon Network, didn't it?
I guess. I watched it in many different sources. I watched it on ITV. I watched it on whichever channels it was on Sky. I watched it all over. I'm
not sure how true this memory is, but I just have a distinct memory of it at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening on Cartoon Network. And that's kind of like where I used to watch it. And like, yeah, me sat down at 10 years old watching Batman. And like, that was like my first, like, I mean, obviously I knew of Batman. I knew who Batman was. I'd watched reruns of 1960s Batman, but that was kind of like my first, like when I started watching Batman the Animated Series was sort of my first kind of experience of Gotham, and, you know, like all the many yarns told about the Caped Crusader and his different rogues and everything else. That's kind of my in. Basically, that was my jumping on point, and I never jumped off. Been on the train ever since. The next few stories that I really liked were there's one called The Batman's Design, which has some really beautiful fluid artwork. Now, like this story kind of showcases Batman as the tactician. So this is Batman doing what he does best. Like he has set a trap, basically, and he has lured these people, these guys he's after. He's kind of lured them into a specific building on purpose because he's already got it set up. This is like, you know, the Batman Prepared for Anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. This is 2
Batman. Steps ahead.
Yeah, Batman 2 steps ahead, Batman the Tactician. And it's a really, really great story with some brilliant uses of light and shadow, and the art is just so fluid, and it just like washes over the page beautifully. And there's some great sequences in here, some beautiful action sequences, a lot of great use of shadow and smoke. Like the sort of like there's this whole kind of like running theme of smoke in every panel almost in this story, and it's just great. And it just shows Batman's just like he's always prepared. He always knows, and he has seen the outcome already because he's done the due diligence, and I love it. And that's it. That's like another facet of Batman that I enjoy. The fact that he is like this kind of master tactician, and given enough time, Batman can beat anyone, which is like the old adage that you hear repeated ad infinitum across the internet. And yeah, Becky Cloonan was the artist on this one, and she completely aced it. It's great. The other one I liked was one called The Precedent, which is a story of it's kind of like Alfred and Batman having a conversation, and they are talking about Dick Grayson. And this is basically Batman has just taken like Dick under his wing, and is sort of apprehensive about the fact that Dick now knows that Batman is Batman, and they're talking about, should I train him kind of thing, and what would he bring to, and like Alfred is basically describing what Robin would bring to everything, and we get like future flashes of Robin, and this is like a celebration of Batman as the teacher, but also the student, because of what Robin teaches Batman and what Robin can help Batman with. They can help each other. And yeah, it's just this conversation in the study between Alfred and Bruce, and also with like kind of flashes into the future of Robin side by side with Batman in the field, in the streets, and just, Batman as the father as well, I guess, a little bit. But I love this story particularly because it's the first sidekick kind of thing, and it's like Batman being, yeah, like it's about like like teaching him like friendship and everything else and things, because Batman's very isolated, very lonely, and I think when Batman has a Robin with him, he's a little bit different. It helps him, I think, like in more ways than just having somebody watching your back. I think it's good for him psychologically as well, which is what I think Alfred's trying to get across. But yeah, that was cool. And the two that sort of bookend it, you had Batman's Longest Case, which opens the book, which is showcasing Batman as the detective. Now that one is the New 52 team. That is Snyder and Capullo, and that is sort of showcasing Batman's detective skills, and we've got him following clue after clue after clue after clue. And I'm not going to tell you what he's following these clues toward, what the end is, but it's a really nice ending. It's quite touching, and it's a true celebration of Batman as the detective. And then the last one is it's a celebration of Batman as the father, basically. It's the Bat family, Batman the Family Man. And this one's called Batman's Greatest Case. And this is Tom King. And it's like everybody gathers together on a rooftop, every member of the Bat family, and they're all gathering together, and nobody knows why they're all gathered together until we get to a double page splash at the end, and I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to read it. It's called Batman's Greatest Case, and that is Tom King wrote that one, and that is really good. And it's just a really nice story of basically the whole Bat family getting together on top of one rooftop, and then Batman turning up at the end. And through the story we get Batman as well, flashbacks of Batman going to visit his parents' grave, and in the end it all sort of comes together, all the pieces come together, and we find out why and what the connection is, and it's really touching, and that one actually brought a tear to my eye.
With it being like a celebration of Batman,
yeah,
does it work at all as an introduction for people who have not really dug into Batman in the past.
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it would, because it would give you if you read this, it would give you a real sense of what Batman is actually about, and you would be, from here forward, actually, you could carry on reading Detective Comics, actually, because the last story in the book is a hook into the next issue of Detective Comics, but
okay,
and it's the start of a new arc as well.
So it could be a good jumping on point.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it gives you like kind of a primer and a real sense of what Batman's about. Some hooks to get you interested, and then and then it kind of like brings you on board for the next part. So I guess as an introduction, for somebody who's not really ever, I wouldn't say somebody who doesn't who knows nothing, absolutely nothing about Batman, because it might be a little bit disorientating, but I think for somebody who has maybe watched a couple of Batman movies and has an interest and, you know, knows, like, so most, basically 99.9% of the world who ever experienced ambient Batman, as I call it, would be, you know, like, this would be a jumping on point for the comics for them, definitely. It could be. So I'm going to run through the credits of my favourite stories, and I'm going to go through them sort of like as they appear in the comic chronologically. So Batman's longest case is Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, with Jonathan Glapion, FCO Placentia, and Tom Napolitano. Scott Snyder writing, Greg Capullo pencils, Tom Napolitano on letters, FCO Placentia on colours, and Jonathan Glapion is inks. Next up, we have The Legend of Knute Brody, which is the Paul Dini one. That's Paul Dini writer, Dustin Nugent on pencils, Derek Frindolfs does inks, and John Callis is colours, and Steve Wands on letters. After that, we have the Batman's design, which is Warren Ellis, writer, Becky Cloonan is the artist, Geordie Belair on colours, and Simon Boland on letters. So that one is actually, like, for me, that one is the most aesthetically pleasing in the book, for sure. Like, the art in that one is absolutely beautiful. Then we have The Precedent, which was James Tynion fourth as the writer. We've got Alvaro Martinez Bueno on pencils, and Raul Fernandez on inks, Brad Anderson on colours, and Sal Cipriano lettering. And that one's quite nice to look at as well. There's like a really cool single page montage of Robin, like with the sort of like the Teen Titans and stuff.
Oh, cool!
Which is really cool. Yeah, there's like a little montage of him with that's a really cool page. And then there's like the montage of him and Batman fighting together as well, which is also a really nice page. And there's some little flecks of him appearing as Nightwing as well, which is really nice. And I guess that's more of a celebration of the sidekick than of Batman himself. More a celebration of Robin, the idea of Robin. But it's still great, and I think it still showcases that side of Batman. And the last one was Batman's Greatest Case, which was Tom King, Tony S. Daniel, Joel Jones, artists, and Tommy Omori on colours, and Clayton Cowles on letters for that one. And that one's really nice. That was the one that's kind of like hit me in the feels a little bit. But yeah, that one's cool. So yeah, that is Detective Comics 1000. So much talent in that book, and it's well worth picking up. And also, I have to tell you, there's like a epic list of covers as well. There are some variants that like are kind of like through the decade variants. There was shop exclusive variants as well, like retailer exclusive ones. I think Brian Bolland did one for Forbidden Planet, which was really nice.
Oh.
Yeah. But the covers I managed to pick up, I got the 1940s cover, which is was done by Bruce Timm, and that was kind of like the 40s style Detective Comics cover variant, which was really cool. And I also picked up the one that is representative of the 1970s, which is Bernie Wrightson and Alex Sinclair, and that one was also really nice. Just a nice cover to have. Batman on a stoop looking out over the city, bat signal kind of hazy in the background in the clouds. I have photographs of both of these covers in on the Ace Comicals Instagram if you want to go and take a look and check them out. Because I took a photo and did a little bit of a write up, as in a little bit of a blurb about, like, yeah, I'm celebrating Batman 80. Stuck that up on the Instagram. But yeah, if you want to check those out, they're up there, the two covers that I got. But all the other covers as well, you can just find them just as easily on the internet. We've got a 1930s one by Steve Rude. We've got 1950s one with Michael Cho. There's a Jim Steranko one. The Bernie Wrightson one, which I have. There's a Frank Miller one, which represents the 80s. Frank Miller and Alex Sinclair. There's a 90s one, which is Tim Sale and Brennan Wagner. There's a 2000s one by Jock, and the 2010s one by Greg Capullo and FCO Placentia. And Chris Comroy and Dave Wilgotch did the editing for this, and Jamie S. Rich was the group editor for the book. And that is Batman, created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger all those years ago. And I'm done. Yeah, it's worth a look, definitely. If you're a Batman fan. If you're a comics fan, it's something worth picking up, because even if you're not particularly a Batman fan, but you like comics, it's a landmark. So, yeah. On from there, I believe it's your turn to talk about a comic, Leon. You want to take us through The Sheriff of Babylon, even? Yeah?
Yes, The Sheriff of Babylon.
Sorry, my jaw was unhinged. I couldn't say the sheriff bit. I was like,
I saw that Batman.
Yeah.
Just driven you Arkham worthy. But yeah, so The Sheriff of Babylon is a comic by a pairing that listeners of the show might be familiar with, as we've gone on and on about them during the life of the show, and that is writer Tom King and artist Mitch Jones from Mr. Miracle fame. The Sheriff of Babylon is a story they did at Vertigo that a few years before, I believe this is a 2016 comic, might be earlier, but yeah, and this is very different from Mr. Miracle, but also shares a lot of similarities. So this story is it's a 12-issuer, just like Mr. Miracle, and it's set during Iraq, the Iraq War, in 2004. So not long after, I think it's a few months after the fall of Saddam, and the country is fully occupied by the Allied forces, the coalition forces at the time, and it focuses on three characters in a semi sort of triptych way. So you have Chris, who's an American ex-cop who is in Iraq to help rebuild the police force there. So he's there training up cops. You've got, so he's part of the military there, helping to train cops. You've got Nasser, who is an Iraqi. He's a Shiite who was the chief of police for Saddam, which itself brings up many complications as well, considering the history of the area and what happened with Saddam and the people there before invasion. And he was a cop, but now he is sort of the man who knows the town type thing. And then you have Sophia, who is a Sunni who moved to America in her youth, I believe, and then moved back to Iraq during the Iraq War as part of the fall, and is positioned in an advantageous position where she's like sort of getting towards the top of like the power there. And the three of these characters intersect due to the murder of one of Chris's like recruits who he's training to be a cop. So the story sort of plays like a noir in some ways. It's like a noir set in war-torn Iraq, and we follow these characters and they're like their stories like intersect and overlap at different points, and we sort of get deeper and deeper into this this rabbit hole and this sort of pressure box of all these different stressed and displaced people in a society that has been completely flipped over. And it's quite what's the way? Like, it's dark. Like, to start off, it is dark. Like, this is definitely this isn't rah America war. This is very brutal, and there's brutality shown like all around, whether it be on actions of the Americans, whether it be actions of the various different Iraqi communities. But yeah, it's desolate in some ways and quite brutal, and like it doesn't shy away from the brutality, but it's not done in a sort of pornographic sense. It's and it's not done as like a shortcut to, yeah, guys, this is war, it's brutal. It's more done in a way to reveal character and to reveal the sort of grey morality of the people there. And when I say the people there, I mean the occupying force, but all the other people who are like sort of divvying up pieces of what's left of the country following the invasion. And yeah, it's wild to sort of see a book like this written by someone who was a CIA agent who did have some time when he was over there. And what you get is a very honest portrayal of the world, and it's not set like a white savior, like American soldier guy waltzes in and with a broken arm and a AK-47, he holds off a bunch of faceless Iraqi bad guys and gets to the bottom of this murder type thing. And it's not even a hackneyed there's an American behind the XYZ and this is the twist. Instead, it's a lot more nuanced and a lot more layered than that. And you get a lot of the techniques that we see a lot of, and we've spoken a lot about in Mr. Miracle, where you got like the famous classic comic 9-panel grid, which is deployed in really impactful ways in terms of not just structure, but really getting you into the heat of a situation or the inner thoughts and feelings of the characters, and you sort of feel their fear, their bewilderment, their anger, their hurt, their loss. All of it is portrayed really well, and I think the King Gerard's team are just on fire. And in ways, it's funny because it feels like a preview run for what they're doing, what they went on to do in Mr. Miracle. But to say that makes it sound like it's incomplete or sophomoric or something like that, and it's not at all. It's telling a different story, but that shares a lot of similarities because there's a lot of internalness. There's a lot of asking hard questions. But like here, I think Gerard's art, it has a similar texture, but it doesn't get as digitally warped as we got in Mr. Miracle. Instead, it goes for a very honest and detailed look and to these characters, and you get a very good sense of what they're thinking, what they're feeling, just through minute little details in how they're drawn and their expressions, and it really I don't know, it's odd because a lot of the time something like that could rely heavy on speech bubbles, and there's a lot of dialogue in this, but I think both work in tandem really well in the best way that comics, when they're on fire, do work, where you're just being pulled through this story and you're invested in trying to find out what's going on, because each issue something completely wild or weird happens, or a quirky behavior from a character completely offsets what you'd expect in that scenario. And yeah, it definitely feels like a circus, but not in a way that sort of played light. There's a lot of weight here, and you can feel the meaning and the search of meaning does just jump off the page. And like even the use, so in Mr. Miracle, you have your panels, especially in the 9-grid style, where you'd get your dark side is. And usually for us, that's like it's like playing in Scott's head in a way, where it's a constant reminder. And in this, in the earlier issues, that technique is used, but in a different way, where instead it's when gunshots happen, and like brutal gunshots for the scene that they take place in. And usually it's like blam or bam, and it's more like bang. And it's so...
is it just lettering over plain black?
Yeah, just like that typeface as well, the sort of courier typeface. But it hits you every time, because it does sort of like punch you in the chest a bit, especially during those early issues. And there's no pulled punches in that sense. But yeah, it's a bit. I'm like about halfway through, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm going to complete that, and I'll probably talk a bit more about it on the next episode if there are any revelations, or if it takes any turns that I think are notable. But I'd heavily recommend you read it for next episode, Greg, because I think you'll enjoy what it's doing. I'd recommend Rahul read it as well. But yeah, I think you'll enjoy what it's doing, because it does feel like a spiritual prequel to a spiritual predecessor to what they were doing on Mr. Miracle, and it even has links to what King was doing on like Vision. Like it's in his wheelhouse, but it's not like a crutch. It's not like, okay, he's implying this thing, or they're implying these techniques again, these cliches. More so, it feels like it's a tool set, and they're using the right tools for the story that they're trying to show us. So I think it's definitely worth reading. It is not it's not easy going, but it's not like, I don't want it to sound like it's just this doom and gloom, gritty, like sort of orange mudfest type thing, where it's just like depressive and overbearing, because I don't think it is at all, but it doesn't shy up on the harsh realities of the Iraq War and the various atrocities that took place, including the invasion itself. But yeah, that's the Sheriff of Babylon 12-issue run. It was released by DC Vertigo, writer Tom King, art and colours Mitch Gerards, letterer was Nick Napolitano.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give that a look. That sounds really cool. Sounds like it's. I mean, it's one I've been meaning to look at anyway. It's only 12 issues, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to check that out for next time. On from there, I think it's Sabrina time, isn't it? So this is one that we both read, and this is a new number 1, and this is Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But it's not horror Sabrina. It's I guess erring more towards classic Sabrina.
Well, it's kind of like an amalgamation of a bunch of the different iterations of Sabrina we've had, isn't it?
Yeah, it has the bounce and the fun of sort of like classic Archie Sabrina, and more kind of more kind of sort of classic well-known Sabrina in the way that it's kind of slice of lifey, but it also has this like supernatural edge, and it's kind of like the perfect middle ground between traditional Sabrina and something like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I
would say that. I'd say it's comic wise, it's in the middle ground of those two, and then I think it has at least some stylistic sprinklings of the TV show Netflix Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and it definitely has like a dash of TV Buffy in there as well, like the earlier high school seasons.
Yeah, definitely. And more importantly, Sassy Salem is back. Sassy Salem is back, yeah.
He is back, and he's not got any time for your shit, Sabrina.
Yeah. Yes. They gave him a voice. And he's using it. And that, for me, as soon as I saw words coming out of that cat's mouth, that was it. I was like, yes. Sassy Salem's back, and this is everything I wanted from a Sabrina comic. And it is pretty much everything I wanted from a Sabrina comic. It's great. What I'm going to do is I am going to give you the blurb from the back of the comic book, because there's a blurb on the back of the comic. Sabrina Spellman is a teen witch who's struggling with balancing the double life of high school and her burgeoning powers. Newly relocated to Greendale with her aunts Hilda and Zelda, also witches, Sabrina is trying to make the best of being the new girl in town, which so far includes 2 intriguing love interests, an instant rivalry, a misfit that could turn into a BFF, and trying to save the high school, and maybe the world, from crazy supernatural events. And this is Kelly Thompson of Captain Marvel and Jessica Jones, and artist Veronica and Andy Fish, who have done Archie and Spider-Woman, and also another book that I have talked about on here, Blackwood, which was the supernatural high school one, which I think I've talked about on a previous episode of this show, which you can go back and check out. And that was Blackwood from Dark Horse Comics. But yeah, it was great. It was everything I wanted from a Sabrina comic. It's like I said, it's everything, because I mean we're Sabrina fans anyway on this show, aren't we?
We are.
I mean, yeah, I think
that's clear.
Yeah, we like Sabrina, but yeah, so I mean, like, we like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina show. We've reviewed that and we've talked about that. I mean, like, we love the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic, the kind of like more horror focused one, because that was a really good horror comic. But this is kind of like a little bit lighter, and it's a bit fun. It has a bit of fun with the idea, and I just thought it was great, like start to finish. And I love like Veronica Fisher's style and the way that she's like designed and styled these characters and taken elements of sort of like from across the history of the character Sabrina and kind of incorporated them all into one. And I just think it's a really great character design, and I especially love the way she draws hair. I don't know if you noticed that. Yeah, she's like the way the hair is in this, like it's just brilliant. It's just perfect. And like the amount of movement you get in the hair between panels and everything, and it's like almost like the hair is the most animated part of the whole thing. It's great. Yeah,
I think the character design is really cool across the board. Like the characters have this very like individualistic look that's stylized.
Yeah,
but in such a cool way. Even sort of changing up, not really changing up, but having a sort of individual take on the classic Sabrina, like blonde haired with a headband look. It is really nice.
Yeah, she's got this kind of like 90s goth edge kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it works because it's kind of like a cheeky nod to the fact that she's a witch, and she stands out because of it, but at the same time she blends in because that's fashion. So
yeah, and it definitely feels like the someone who is like a Gen Z kid who's embracing like a 90s goth fashion, even though it would be set now. It does have that feeling, like completely.
Definitely. And I think one of the more interesting things about this as well is the panels where magic is used, you know, when she's casting a spell. And also the lettering that goes with that. Like the way spells are in this book, and the way the lettering is to give you kind of an idea of like maybe she has like a ethereal booming voice. Like there's some kind of energy behind it.
Yeah.
Where the speech bubble goes black and the text goes white. And also each panel where she uses a spell is labelled with a little scroll to tell you that this is the second spell or the third spell she's used during the story. And after promising she wasn't going to use any magic at the beginning of the book, because what could go wrong, right, when Sabrina starts using magic to help people and stuff? Because that's pretty much like the hook of any good Sabrina story, is Sabrina using magic and it backfiring.
Yeah, and that's definitely set up here, because it starts like in media res, doesn't it? Where she's sort of not waking up, but like just come to her senses or something, and she's on spell 5. So and things look quite dire. We've got a Wendigo staring our face in like page 2, and then you jump back to the beginning of the day, and the spells are sort of used as a structural device that move us throughout the day, but also show us how laissez-faire Sabrina can be. Like, I mean, she has the best intentions, but it's the classic, classic Sabrina of thinking that magic can fix any problem, and being overly liberal with her use of it.
Magic, and the magic panels being framed in purple as well. I think that's quite nice.
Yeah,
and the way the panels are edged, it just looks ethereal and magical. Like, I love that, like this kind of like purple haze and that comes over it. The way they do the magic in this book is great, and each spell panel just looks fantastic. I mean, the whole book looks fantastic, but there's just some great lettering moments as well. And the whole thing, it's just fun. It's just a fun ride, start to finish, and you know it's quite funny actually in places. I really enjoyed it. I love the way that with it's just like it kind of like takes you through her day step by step. And you just it's just a day in the life of Sabrina, basically. This first book, like, to give you an idea, like as a number one, it's a great introduction, because the way the story's structured in this first issue, the way this first chapter is, as in a day in the life of Sabrina, to give you an idea of who she is and how she kind of interacts with the world. I think that works really well.
As the new kid as well.
Yeah. And I think that works really well as an introduction and really well as an issue 1, and I think it's really cool.
Because I like especially how it begins, because it starts with like a 9 panel, but like there's no white gutters. The gutters are more art, indicative of the strangeness of the scene and the location in like the woods or forest, and it really like it grabs you straight away.
Yeah. And Zelda and Hilda as well. Like, in the one interaction we get with Zelda and Hilda, we get an instant idea of who they are and how each one is.
Yeah, and like they're not as like Zelda's not as like zealoty. They're not devil worshippers in this. Basically, if you're coming from this off from the TV show, the Netflix show, they're more in the guise of classic Hilda and Zelda, but they're definitely influenced to a degree visually, to some degree.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And in the way that they are with, in the way that they interact with Sabrina as well, like you instantly get which one's strict and which one's liberal and which one's fun and which one's not from the food that they give her, because it's just there in the food and then when she's there with the two things in her hand, the Pop-Tart and the health shake or whatever it is, it's like the instantly, like this is the two forces you're contending with. You've like represented here in your hands in these two items, a Pop-Tart and a brutally horrible health shake. It's like that's what it is, and that like just distills Hilda and Zelda for me.
Well, the thing that cracks me up in this is they introduce Harvey, as you got to do. She meets Harvey on her first day, and he's just mega bland and boring. Like, is that he just destined to be boring and dull? Harvey sucks. And then she meets this like she has like two meet cutes in the space of 5 minutes. But because she meets what's his name again? The leather jacket wearing Ren. That's it, Ren. Yeah. And he's more interesting. He's he speaks more in more fancy and like he feels himself hardcore. Like he knows he's attractive, but he has a bit of magic to him. Like Sabrina's sort of just nailing. They've got a flirt game on 100 that day, which is it is cool. But on the flip side of I really like the friend actually, the girl who's being bullied. Yeah. Who? Why am I forgetting everybody's name? I can't remember her name. I'll find it later. But she's like a cool setup as like this like bullied girl. And the thing I like about Sabrina and what I really like in Chilling Adventures on Netflix is Jessa.
Jessa Chiang.
Yeah, it is that I like her sort of building her coalition of mates, and in they're all underdogs in the Netflix one, and I kind of like her sort of building that, and I hope Jessa isn't just like a sidekick character. But like on the flip side, I found Radka, she's so over the top mean. Yeah, I hope there is a good like flip or reveal in the coming issues, because she's so over the top mean to like a ridiculous degree. Because at the beginning, it just feels like standard sort of snooty mean girl, but like the stuff she does later on,
she's horrible.
She's horrible. So I'm hoping that at least somehow she isn't just one-dimensionally evil. But I've got faith that probably won't be the case by happenings that happen later on that we shall not.
I think she's going to end up as part of Sabrina's ragtag group.
Yeah,
easy. But I mean, the way this comic ends is pretty cool, and I'm definitely enjoyed that as an issue one. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, because it moves, doesn't it? Listeners have heard me complain on this show many a time that sometimes I find issue one's just hard to talk about because there's a lot of setup, and it's usually issue 2 is when the ball gets rolling. But this does have like a lot of the elements, and it sets you. And I think having the framing structure for being a first day at a new school and meeting all these new people is good, because it gives us a lot of the high level notes that we need for her life, who she is, what her general outlook is, and what the world of Greendale, and especially Greendale High, is like in this world. And it nails all of that, and then has its tingly supernatural witchy stuff, and we're sort of brought in and propelled forward. And I quite like that.
I enjoyed it. It's perfect middle ground for me. What I want to see now is I want to see this Sabrina turn up in the Riverdale TV show.
Yeah. Because she's like devil worshipy ones, they just won't work. But this Sabrina could show up in the show, I think.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think Riverdale's too far gone for that now.
yeah. Well, Riverdale's a fantasy show now, isn't it?
Yeah, are you up to date with it now?
No, I was looking yesterday. I'm 7 episodes behind.
Oh man,
don't know how that happened. It's all this year, but I'll catch up to it before the end of this.
It's a roller coaster, and it's something you have to catch up on. Definitely. Oh.
Well, last things I'll point out is that the Veronica Fish cover, which is the one I got with my Comixology purchase, is so cool. Like, it gives me Kiki's delivery service vibes, but also it's like, because it's done by the artist. I'm a big fan of covers done by the artist.
Yeah.
And I feel like not only does it have a bit more consistency for me, but it also has this thing of like, what do they give us when they don't have to, like, when they're not trying to move the story on, type of thing? Like, how do they get all the essences of the character that they've given us over 20 plus pages? How do they fit that into one panel, basically?
Exactly.
And I think this one's really good, where it's Sabrina with the white hair, sailing in her backpack, just on a broom in the clouds, loads of birds about, while her bag's open and there's stuff flying out. It captures a lot of that really good. And I think the Adam Hughes cover, because at the back it gives you the covers gallery.
Yeah.
The Adam Hughes cover looks really cool. So I really like that sort of postery like look.
Yeah.
Where it's not quite 50s pin-up, if you know what I mean, but it evokes that type of vibe, like with the facial expressions.
It does have that, yeah. I do like the Adam Hughes cover, but I've got the Veronica Fish cover as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're really cool.
Yeah. So full list of credits for Sabrina issue 1. We have story by Kelly Thompson, art by Veronica Fish and Andy Fish, lettering by Jack Morelli. Editors are Alex Segura and Jamie Lee Rotante, and editor-in-chief Victor Gorlick, publisher John Goldwater, and that is on Archie Comics. And we have variant covers, which we've already mentioned a couple. Main cover is Veronica Fish. Variant covers Stephanie Buscema, Adam Hughes, Victor Ibanez, and Sandra Lanz. So yeah, that is Sabrina the Teenage Witch #1. Now, the last one that we have to talk about today is one that we were sent very graciously by Soaring Penguin Press for review, and this is the latest collected edition of Daisy Blackwood Pilot for Hire. Now, what we have, so this is like the second one. The one that we're going to be talking about today is, the one that we're going to be mainly talking about today is actually the second book, because this is the one that's going to be coming out in the near future. But this is actually the second of two, and this is Daisy Blackwood Pilot for Hire, and it's the title of the story is The Stolen Socialite, and is entirely the work of a Ryan Howe. So this is kind of, how do I get to describing this? It is this this great kind of like all ages adventure, I guess. And it's this pulpy 30s, 40s, like out of time aesthetic with kind of 30s and 40s style and technology. And it has this like little bit of a fantasy edge with sky pirates and things like that. And Daisy Blackwood is this like no nonsense badass pilot who drives planes and does cargo deliveries and all kinds of stuff like that. She's a pilot for hire, and she gets embroiled in these death-defying adventures. And in the second one, The Stolen Socialite, she is out to rescue her friend from a gang of pirates, sky pirates. From what I get from the book, they are sky pirates, a gang of sky pirates, and it's just like non-stop action from panel to panel, page to page, and it is great. So what I'll do is because I read both, because I read the first collection as well in prep for this, They are both standalone stories. You don't, because of the nature of the nature of the way the stories are in this, you don't need to have read the first one to understand anything about this one, because they are just standalone arcs involving this character, which is quite nice, actually. I quite like that either or could be a jumping on point. The first one is the Cursed Island, which has got more of a kind of a like an ancient civilization-y Indiana Jonesy type edge to it, with some kind of weird like Lovecraftian elements as well. That one's kind of cool. I like that one.
Yeah, sounds like it'd be up your alley.
Yeah. So she ends up driving a plane. The plane gets hijacked by a scientist who has a curious artifact and needs to get to a particular island to destroy it. And they're also being chased by a tough as nails bounty hunter. And yeah, it's great fun. I'm not going to talk too much about the plot because I don't want to spoil it, but it's great fun. And the Stolen Socialite is the adrenaline up to 11 the same way, except this one's more of a kind of like a pulp adventure, but with less of a horror element to it. But it's still really cool. This book is just a real treat. I really like the great pacing, and it's this awesome, fun pulp adventure strip, and it's a webcomic, and these are collected arcs that get published via Soaring Penguin Press. So it's a webcomic that you can follow, and these collected arcs have been published in print. And it's this gorgeous. The art is just this gorgeous, clean line cartoon style, and it's just so economical with detail. And each panel contains just enough to convey the message or the motion or the action or whatever it is it's trying to show you. And it gets to the point, and it works so well for these energetic, fast-paced stories that it tells. Because with this being a webcomic as well, like the format will be energetic and fast-paced. Because, I mean, I don't know if you've noticed that when you've read webcomics, but each page, although part of a wider story and telling like a part of a wider arc, each page itself has a definite start, middle, and end. So it's like a chapter in a page almost, isn't it? Yeah. And it's a skill for sure to kind of do that in one page. Like each of these pages hits those beats. Start, middle, end, start, middle, end.
Especially because on the site, apparently there are updates every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Exactly, yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. And it's like when you collect it together and read it as a full arc, it gives it like this really cool rhythm, and it just kind of like flows perfectly. And with the way the art is in this as well, in black and white, it just adds to the pulp feel even more. There's some great character designs. I love Daisy; she's great. Like, I mean, like these stories have a mean right hook, and so does Daisy. Like, it's just, you know, it's just fantastic, and it's got great detail and expression. And you know what, I could see this as a Saturday morning cartoon. I don't know, like I just could. It just has that air about it, that feel. It's just kind of thing that if I was a kid, I would love it if it was on TV.
Yeah, because I wanted to read this in time for the recording, but I'll have to read it for next episode. But looking at some of the most recent updates on the site, yeah, I definitely echo what you're saying about the line work and the character design. They're so like you can feel the personality of the character just in a few brushstrokes and a few like lines like under their eyes or on their cheeks. There's a lot of detail in like the clothing, and because it's black and white, the shade game is like very good.
Exactly, but it's not overbearing, is it? It's not too much. It's just enough, and it's
really clean. It has this really clean look that I like,
and it because of that, it is an absolute joy to read. And I enjoyed it all start to finish. The gorgeous black and white artwork, it's just great, and the writing's good as well. Like it's just such great pacing in these stories, and it just goes from adrenaline-filled page to adrenaline-filled page because of it being a webcomic and with its original form being incremental like that. It's, I mean, more incremental than comics are, because comics are, if you imagine comics as published individual chapters of a greater whole, a webcomic, each chapter is a single page, and that is evident in this, and it that is what gives it such energy when you're reading it. It's great. And I would recommend this to anybody who likes, who wants a fun first adventure comic, anybody who, anybody who enjoys that 1930s, 40s pulp aesthetic, in any way, shape or form will love this. Because it has all of that. It's got biplanes, it's got ancient civilizations and like lost islands and stuff like that. It's got it all. It's the whole thing, like, and it's got this fantasy edge with these kind of like sky pirates, like flying in a blimp kind of thing, and with the second story being what it is, this ransom story, it's just great. And I mean, the first one, The Cursed Island, is available now via Soaring Penguin Press. The second one, which is Daisy Blackwood, Pilot for Hire, The Stolen Socialite, will be available on the 20th of April. From the 20th of April. Or, well, I mean, I think you can probably pre-order it now from Soaring Penguin Press, but it will, like, I think its print date is 20th of April. So that will be available on the 20th of April 2019 at www.soaringpenguinpress.com, where you can buy the other one in print as well. So yeah, the first one is Daisy Blackwood, Pilot for Hire, The Cursed Island, and I think that's available now. So the price of the second one, when it drops, in pounds, will be £7.99, and in dollars, that's $12.99 US, and it's 92 pages, and it's black and white, and it's beautiful, and I recommend it 100%. So yeah, go check that out. Oh, also the second one has a bonus adventure in it. There's a 19-page adventure at the end, which is called Follow That Bird, and it's basically Daisy chasing a bird across the city because she owes somebody a favour, and this parrot, the bird's a parrot, and the parrot knows things. It belongs to like a prominent businessman / stock trader type guy, and obviously if that parrot gets into the wrong hands, that parrot could spill all kinds of secrets, so she has to get the parrot back before it falls into the wrong hands. And it's hilarious, it's great, I love it. And it's 100% worth reading and picking up. So grab those, check them out. They're great. Or even if you just go to the website and check out the webcomic, give that a look. Check out some of the artwork and some of the work on there, because it's great. Yeah. So yeah, and that is entirely the work of Ryan Howe. He did the whole lot, written and illustrated by Ryan Howe. And I think that brings us to the end of the comics for this week, doesn't it, Leon? That is everything.
It does.
Yeah, nothing left. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very quickly just bust through a couple of comics that I've got on the pull list for the next 2 weeks. So that's the 3rd of April, and we've also got a pull list for the 10th of April as well. So on the 3rd of April, I've just picked 2 for each one. So 3rd of April, I've got Section 0. Now, Section 0 is published by Image Comics, and this is the blurb says it all, really. A team of fearless adventurers uncovers the secrets behind UFOs, monsters, and lost civilizations. It's Jack Kirby does the X-Files. In this mini-series by one of comics' classic creative teams, Carl Kessel of Harley Quinn and Superboy, and Tom Grummett, who Death of Superman and Superboy, and some of the greatest alternative cover artists in the industry. So yeah, it's if you like the X-Files and Jack Kirby, and it kind of looks like that as well, actually, when you look at the cover of the first issue. Got like this kind of team stood in shadow under what looks like the light of a UFO. And it looks kind of cool. I may check that out.
It sounds cool.
Yeah, it sounds kind of cool. So I think I'll have to check that out. And that is Carl Kessel, who is the writer, artist, and cover artist. We've also got Tom Grummett, who's artist, cover artist. We've got a variant cover by Jerry Ordway and another variant cover by Walt Simonson. So that's worth a look. Second one for the 3rd of April, is the Ghostbusters 35th anniversary, Ghostbusters #1, which caught my eye, of course. The 35th anniversary of the Ghostbusters is upon us. Let's celebrate with 4 spooktacular weekly comics featuring different Ghostbuster teams in all new standalone adventures. First out of the firehouse are the original Bustin' team of Peter, Winston, Egon and Ray, who've seen a lot of things during their time as paranormal investigators, but the latest case might just turn history on its head. Could it be that they found proof of Atlantis? It's a case full of saltwater and slime with the original Ghostbusters, and that is Eric Burnham and Dan Schooning, of course. Who else? And yeah, I mean, I've been looking forward to these 35th anniversary celebrations for Ghostbusters like all year. There's like, I mean, I talked about it. Was it a couple of episodes ago? I talked about the fact that they're doing the crossover with Transformers later on this year. And I'm looking forward to this. And what I'm especially looking forward to actually is the real Ghostbusters portion, because I hear tale that they are doing, as one of these like weekly comics, they're doing a real Ghostbusters one, and that for me is just chef's kiss. So yeah, we are looking forward to that. For the 10th of April, there's a couple that I have picked up on. We've got Detective Comics 1001, which follows on from Detective Comics 1000. The end of Detective Comics 1000 is the lead-in for the story for Detective Comics 1001. So you need to go and read that explosively, and you need to go and read that explosive ending, not explosively. Don't read it explosively. That's a bad idea. How would you read something explosively? Would that be like shouting in all caps on public transport or something? I don't know. But yeah, so you need to go and read that, and then you need to read 1001 because it's going to be great. The lead-in sounds great. I'm interested. I like it. Yeah, so check that out. And we have Marvel Tales Thanos #1, which this one is kind of like, it's part of these Marvel 80th anniversary celebrations. So the most ruthless villain in the Marvel Universe takes centre stage as we celebrate the 80th anniversary of the House of Ideas with the era-spanning Marvel Tales. This anthology series shines a spotlight on fan-favourite characters, features timeless stories, and highlights some of Marvel's most impressive talent from the past 8 decades. And for Thanos, it could only be the cosmic maestro Jim Starlin, reprinting the classic tale written and drawn by Starlin. That first revealed Thanos' stunning connection to the deadliest woman in the galaxy, Gamora, from Warlock 1972 #10, and another Starling scripted epic pits the Mad Titan against one of the Marvel Universe's greatest evils, the devilish Mephisto, in Silver Surfer 1987, Silver Surfer 45, and Gamora gets the chance to unleash her full fury on her twisted father figure in Warlock and the Infinity Watch #8. So yeah, it's worth a look at as a collection of classic Thanos tales, kind of like what Marvel have been doing with the True Believers thing, except what they've done is they've just kind of combined them into one easy to pick up anthology book. So as a primer for Thanos, I guess that'd be really cool. If you want to know a little bit more about Thanos, a little bit of a history lesson, it'd be a great thing to pick up. I've actually read all of those stories before, thinking about it.
Really?
And they're all great, yeah. Now we have also another one that I picked up that it just hit me as a Leon book, and this one is called Faithless, and this is on Boom Studios. Faith, sex, the devil. Faith likes to dabble with magic. Her friends think it's cute and not just a little off-putting. But it's part of her charm and her warped search for purpose in a world that makes too much sense. But she's a true believer and knows there is a power within her reach. She's right, of course. It just took a while for that magic. The temptation, that unknowable thing to find her. In short, Faith is bored as hell and hell has noticed. And this is Brian Azzarello, who has written it. We've got artist Maria Lovett. Paul Pope has done a cover for this. We've got a variant cover by Mirka Andolfo and another variant cover by Tula Lote. So, and there's a Bermeo variant as well. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just hit me straight away as a Leon book. I don't know why, but I mean, like, yeah, it just sounded interesting, so you could check that out.
Yeah, I'll give that a look.
Yeah. And that is the end of the pull list for this week. So that has been Ace Comicals number 59. So you can find us at www.acecomicals.com, which is pretty much the hub for everything. We have links to all of our social media on there. We have Twitter, where you can find us as Ace Comicals. You can find us on Facebook under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Castro to listen to us. You can send us emails to acecomicals@gmail.com. Send us stupid scenarios to discuss, give us silly questions, anything you want, and we will endeavour to answer those on the following shows. You can find me on Twitter under @Batto, that's BATTOU. Leon, where can we find you?
Follow me on Twitter at Leon Everett.
And so, I mean, you can interact with us on social media, get involved in the conversation, and that has been Ace Comicals. Over and out.